Lisa A. Smith, founder of the Black Health Academy, certified plant-based nutritionist, and certified plant-based foodie. Today, I want to share with you a little bit about my story about how I lost and maintained 65-pound weight loss and give you some pro tips on achieving and maintaining weight loss on a vegan diet. So I started my health and wellness journey back in 2012 at approximately 190 pounds. And at that time, all I knew was that I wanted to change what I looked like aesthetically. I walked past a mirror. I was not satisfied with what I saw. And so I decided to do something about it. So in January of 2012, I hired my first personal trainer, and she catapulted me into a weight loss journey and into essentially a brand new career. At that time, I was working in social work. And throughout my weight loss journey, I realized that I was in love with health and fitness and nutrition. I decided to become a certified personal trainer and eventually start my first health and wellness company in 2015, my second health and wellness company in 2017. And then I was tapped to run a third health and wellness company in 2019. So today, full time, I run 3 health and wellness companies, which I absolutely love and enjoy. And it is my pleasure to bring to you how I was able to not only lose this weight, but maintain this weight loss using a vegan diet. But there are 4 key things that you want to be mindful of as you're reaching your weight goals on a vegan diet. So I'm going to share those things with you today. So this is a little about a visual representation of my journey. You know, I started off at 190 and then I dropped all the way down to about 130. So that's the 65 pounds. But I then realized that I wanted some mass, I wanted some tone, I wanted to shape my body. And so after losing the weight, I decided to put some of it back on in the form of muscle. And so I actually gained about another 20 pounds, 15 to 20 pounds, quite intentionally, in an effort to sculpt my body, right? To have the curves and the definition that I was looking for. So let's talk about the 4 things that may be stalling your weight loss journey on a vegan diet. The first of those 4 is hydration. One of the things I find with my students and my clients is that when we're making the transition to a whole food plant-based diet, sometimes we become so consumed with not consuming the animal products that we sometimes forget about the basics, such as drinking water and drinking enough water. Many of us are drinking some water, but not quite drinking enough. And one of the things you'll find when you're trying to lose weight is that hydration is so critical, especially if you're still kind of in the midst of cleaning up your diet. So you may have given up a lot of animal products, but maybe there are some still lingering, or maybe you're in the part of your journey where you're leaning a little heavily on processed vegan foods. Those foods are full of sodium, salt, and sugar, and so they can cause water retention in our bodies. So it's so important that we are hydrating properly and eliminating that excess buildup in our body. So here's a few things that water does. First and foremost, hydration is critical for elimination. A lot of times we think our excess weight is just visceral fat, but sometimes it's chronic inflammation or bloating. And so to ensure that you are eating when you really are hungry, meaning you're not confusing hunger with dehydration, and to ensure that you're eliminating waste on a regular basis, and that's not adding numbers to the scale, you want to make sure you're properly hydrating every single day. So here's some tips about hydration. First and foremost, and this is a big pro tip, all of my students, all of my clients have experienced significant changes in their health journey by just instituting this first tip, which is consuming 20 to 25 ounces of water within 30 minutes of waking. This is really critical because number 1, it's going to help jumpstart that metabolism at the top of the day. Number 2, it's going to help you to eliminate waste right away. So you've been fasting or sleeping all night, right? And so your body is doing a plethora of things while you're sleeping. But most importantly, it's ready typically to eliminate first thing upon waking. Well, proper hydration is going to allow your body to do just that. So you want to make sure that you are consuming 20 to 25 ounces of room temperature or warm water within the first 30 minutes of waking. to really get those bowels moving. The second pro tip with regard to hydration is that you want to make sure that you're consuming half of your healthy body weight throughout the day. So although you're starting that first, 30 minutes of waking with that first 20 to 25 ounces, throughout the remainder of the day, you're working your way up to half of your healthy body weight. So what does that mean? Right now, you may still have excess weight on your body, right? And so I want you to write down what your weight will be without that excess weight. What is your healthy body weight? Now, it's important to note here that your healthy body weight and your desired body weight may be two different numbers. So, the best way to figure out what your healthy body weight is by using a body mass index calculator, also known as a BMI calculator. So, you can totally look up a BMI calculator on the computer. It's going to ask you a few key questions that you should know right away, like your sex, your height, your weight, your age, and then it's going to tell you what your BMI is. A healthy body mass index is between 18 to 23. And so that is going to more than likely be a weight range. So for you, a healthy body weight might be anywhere from 135 to 150, right? So within that healthy weight range, what you can then from that range determine what your ideal body weight is. So in your healthy weight range, where would you like to be in that range? Take that number, divide it by 2, and that's how many ounces of water you should be drinking. So if your healthy body weight, let's say, is 190 pounds, then that means you should be consuming approximately 80 ounces of water, or excuse me, approximately 90 ounces of water every single day, right? And so you just want to really make sure you're staying within that number, because it's going to be really, really important that if you slip and you're not getting proper hydration on a daily basis, you're going to find that number one, most likely you won't be eliminating properly. And number two, more than likely, your body is going to experience some water retention. And also, it's important to note that, hydration or water is the one thing we wake up deficient in every day. So while we need, for example, 102 vitamins and minerals to thrive, we don't have to eat all of them every day for our levels to be optimal. Well, that's not the case with water. So if you are not currently drinking half of your healthy body weight in ounces of water per day, then you could be chronically dehydrated. It may not be severe enough to warrant hospitalization. However, your body is not getting the hydration it needs to do all of the chemical processes that it does every day to keep you alive and for you to thrive. And so you want to make sure you get that water in. Now, a few more pro tips about water. One, room temperature is best. It's better for your digestive system than cold water. And you want to avoid plastic as much as possible and stick to either glass or stainless steel. The next thing with regard to water is that spring is best. So most people often ask, what type of water should I be drinking? Is it alkaline? Is it spring water? Is it distilled water? Is it filtered water? Well, spring is best because of the presence of the minerals, and it's alive, living water if it's coming from a true spring. However, drink what you have access to. It is not necessary to go out of your way to get a specialty water unless that's your preference. The first thing we want to master is simply drinking the water. And so whatever you have access to, if you have a filtration system at home on your refrigerator or a filter pitcher and you prefer to use that, that's fine. If right now you have, a kitchen full of distilled water, that finish that off, it's okay. If you love a certain alkaline water that you get locally, go for it. Drink what you have access to and make sure you're hitting that half of your healthy body weight in ounces per day and that first 25 ounces within the first 30 minutes of waking. The next tip with regard to something that may be stalling your weight loss is going to be sugar consumption. So it's interesting because oftentimes when we make a transition to a vegan diet, although we're eliminating animal products, that poultry, that seafood, that dairy, those eggs, sometimes we neglect to eliminate that refined sugar, because refined sugar technically is vegan, right? It technically doesn't come from an animal. And so technically it's allowed on a vegan diet. However, if you're trying to lose weight, Or if you're simply trying to reverse a chronic condition and increase your life expectancy, you must eliminate the sugar from your diet because Oreos are vegan, right? And so you could eat Oreos and technically still be within the realms of your vegan diet and lifestyle. And so it's going to be important to focus on eliminating sugar just as much as you do animal products here. Now, here are a few things that you need to understand about sugar. The first is that sugar is highly inflammatory. So essentially, that means that, any pre-existing conditions you may be currently experiencing, whether that's like joint pain or headaches or even fibroids, it's chronic kidney disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. These conditions are going to be exacerbated with the consumption of sugar. Sugar is highly, highly inflammatory. The second issue with sugar is that it hijacks your hunger hormones. So we have a hormone, ghrelin, which tells us we're hungry and we're ready to eat and fuel up. And we have another hormone, leptin, which tells us we're full and it's time to stop eating. Well, when we consume sugar or meals that are high in sugar, those hunger hormones, those signals are compromised. And I'm sure you've been here before where, you're not even hungry and you're eating cookies, cakes, pies, dessert, ice cream, or, even though you know what a serving size is, you're doubling and tripling that, and so there's nothing, you're not eating because you're hungry. You're not eating from a biological standpoint. You're eating from a behavioral standpoint. And that becomes really problematic because you are getting that endorphin hit. You're getting that dopamine hit, should I say, whenever you eat that sugar, which means it's sending a signal to the pleasure center of your brain. Your brain is releasing that dopamine, that neurotransmitter, and it's causing you to crave more. So although you may have done the work to reduce your sugar consumption, to truly reach and maintain your weight loss goals, to maintain a healthy weight, and to reverse and prevent chronic disease, you have to eliminate the sugar. I know there's work here. I know it's not as easy as it sounds, but it really, really stalls your ability to thrive optimally, both physically and mentally. The other thing that sugar does to your body and your brain, and there's a lot. I only put a few here, but we could go through many more. But it compromises your microbiome, i.e., your gut health and your immunity. So over 60% of our immune system is located in our gut. And when we consume lots of sugar, what it does is it feeds the unhealthy bacteria that resides in our microbiome. In our microbiome, there are literally billions of microorganisms. And what we feed those organisms determines, how our gut thrives and determines, what other conditions may present themselves. And so it's really important that we starve out the bad bacteria and feed the healthy bacteria in our microbiome. Well, sugar is going to feed the bad bacteria. And so you are creating a bit of an acidic environment there and essentially creating a condition that will allow certain diseases to thrive. And moreover, it's not going to assist you in weight loss at all when you have an unhealthy microbiome, because that means your digestive system is not thriving optimally, your immune system is not at optimal level. And so it can lead to leaky gut syndrome and all type of issues when you're consuming this acidic processed sugar, which has no nutrients and is a ton of calories. So, weight loss isn't as simple as calories in, calories out, because a calorie is not a calorie. Just because a meal is 500 calories doesn't mean it's a healthy meal. And just because a meal is 2,000 calories doesn't mean it's an unhealthy meal necessarily. There's a bunch of other components like the presence of micronutrients that really determines the health of that meal. However, with sugar, we're not getting any of those micronutrients. And micronutrients here are your vitamins and your minerals. And so essentially, you're filling up with calories without filling up nutritionally. So most of us live calorically full and nutritionally we're starved. And so it's really important that we don't bog down the room we have for food and fuel with empty calories. And in this case, and with sugar. And it's really important to note here that maybe your thing isn't desserts. Like maybe you're not a cookie, candy, cake person. That's okay. But do you check the label on your seasonings, on your salad dressings, on that your favorite brand of bean burger, your favorite, vegan cheese. What else are you eating that possibly has sugar added to it that isn't technically a dessert? So just because you've done the work to eliminate soda and cookies doesn't mean you're not getting a ton of sugar in your diet. And finally, dehydration. Now, our first tip was all about hydrating. Well, sugar is extremely dehydrating, right? Sugar works by extracting the moisture from the cells of living organisms. And so when that moisture is extracted from your cells, it number one could lead to neuropathy or nerve damage. And number two, it drains your energy because your body has to do the work to replenish that hydration. So, weight is just one byproduct of sugar consumption, excess weight. But when we get into chronic disease and even emotional and mental health, the refined sugar is anti all of those things. So you want to eliminate excess sugar from your vegan diet. Okay, the third tip for really, really taking back your power and losing and maintaining weight on a vegan diet is oil consumption. So one of the things that, most people are not mindful of when they transition to a vegan diet is how much oil they consume. And honestly, this is one thing that most people are not mindful of in general, regardless of what their dietary lifestyle is. Oil is so rampant and plentiful throughout vegan foods. It's number one, again, it's technically considered a plant-based product because it's not derived from an animal. And so we run into the same issue that we ran into with sugar, which is, listen, it's coming from an olive or it's coming from a coconut, it's coming from an avocado. And so it's been essentially touted as a health food for years. But the truth of the matter is that oil can be extremely detrimental to your health and most importantly, your weight loss journey. So here's a few things you need to know about oil. One, oil is 100% fat minus the micronutrients. So if you eat a whole olive, those great black olives or Kalamata olives, or if you eat a whole avocado, meaning you're chewing here, or even eating the flesh of a coconut, when you're eating the food in its whole molecularly complete form, you're getting all of the micronutrients, i.e. the vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients that accompany that food. However, when you eat an extract of that food, i.e. oil, and you essentially threw away all the fiber and all of the micronutrients and you're left with just the fat, right? And so contrary to popular belief, even olive oil is not much of a health food because it's just pure fat. So it's adding a ton of calories, again, without any nutrients or fiber to accompany it. Just like sugar is not just found in desserts, oil is not just found in fried foods. Now, many of you have probably had some delicious fried vegan foods, but even think of something like a stir fry, right? That's usually more than likely stir fried in oil. It could be your vegetables mixed with your quinoa and your brown rice, but we lace it with oil. Or when we're starting that black bean chili or going to, pan sear those black bean burgers, how often are you adding oil to the pan? What about our beloved chips and guac or chips and hummus or chips and salsa? Those chips are typically 3 ingredients: corn, oil, and salt. What about taco night, right? What about those black bean tacos or those portobello mushroom tacos? That hard taco shell, again, is corn, oil, and salt. What about potato chips, right? So many potato chips are still technically vegan. And so again, you have the potato, or whatever vegetable was used to make the chips, and oil, and then probably salt or whatever other flavorants and seasonings. And so most of us, we're getting a ton of oil in our salad dressings, right? In our pasta sauces and marinara sauces. If you read those ingredients, there's oil, canola oil, vegetable oil. And then, sometimes we get tricked into seeing, oh, this is made with grapeseed oil or avocado oil. And we think this is a little better, right? But you have to understand that oil contains the highest amount of calories per serving among all 3 of the macronutrients. So the macronutrients are proteins, carbs, and fats, but fats have the highest calorie per serving compared to proteins, and carbohydrates. So it's really important to understand, again, high caloric density, low nutrient density. And that, again, is a problem because it's filling you up, but it's not giving your body the raw materials it needs to help you lose and maintain a healthy weight and avoid chronic conditions. And speaking of chronic conditions, the final thing I want to say about oil here is if you or someone you love have a history of heart disease or even type 2 diabetes, which is an intramyocellular lipid disease, lipid meaning fat, you want to eliminate all oil from your diet. It really destroys the endothelial cells, which is the lining of the arteries. And so that oil becomes problematic in those conditions, as well as many other pre-existing conditions. But if you're on a weight loss journey, trust me when I tell you, it might be the excess oil that's keeping you from reaching your goals. One final thing that may be preventing you from weight loss on your vegan diet, and that is chronic stress. So, the first three were pretty much things that you could switch or change out in the kitchen. But this particular one is all about what's happening in your life outside of the kitchen. Here's the deal. Unfortunately, we live in a busy, crazy society where there's always an opportunity to be triggered. There's always an opportunity to be triggered by something that we consider a stressor, depending on what your core values are, what your career is, what your, familial makeup is, what your professional life is. There are always going to be triggers. And when we live with chronic stress, it really, disallows us to thrive physically and mentally. So I'm going to share a few things that chronic stress does or how it impacts the body and the brain. The first is that chronic stress is an immunosuppressant. So essentially what that means is when you are chronically stressed, when you're stressed in general, so even acute stress and chronic stress is essentially a fight or flight mode where your body is flooded with fight or flight hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. And essentially, there's a signal sent to your brain that says we're in danger. So it's either a real threat or a perceived threat, right? So a perceived threat could be something like, oh my goodness, it's a pandemic. The world is shutting down. Am I going to still be employed 3 months from now? Right? That the loss of employment is a perceived threat, right? A real threat could be, I'm driving down the street and I just see a car run a light and they're heading towards me, right? So whether it's a perceived threat or a real threat, your brain doesn't really know the difference between either one. And essentially it sends you into fight or flight mode, right? We need to get back to safety. I need to swerve my car or hop out of this car to save myself. And the good news in that situation is that it's acute, right? So, after you get out of that car or get out of that oncoming car's way, you're back to safety and things can return to normal. But what about being in the middle of a pandemic where the perceived threat is the loss of employment or the loss of financial stability? And that is an ongoing feeling because things are changing in the world. You don't feel secure in your position and you're not really sure, what your life, your financial life and your livelihood is going to look like months from now. And so it literally weighs on you mentally and emotionally over the course of several months, sometimes several years for us. Our chronic stress. Maybe we're grieving the loss of something or someone. Maybe we're dealing with health issues that have been a stressor for us for a long time. Maybe we're dealing with family issues and personal development issues that have caused this stress. And so chronic stress, not only does it compromise our immune system, but it certainly stalls our weight loss because when you're chronically stressed, your body pumps blood outward. It pumps blood to our legs and our arms, to our limbs, because it believes we are in a threatening situation, a threatening environment, and we need to get away. And so it literally compromises our immune and our gut health because, again, 60% of our immune system is in our gut because it's pushing all of our energy outward so that we can get to safety. And so when we are chronically stressed, every system in our body is compromised. It's not operating at high capacity. So that goes for your digestive system, your endocrine system, your immune system, your vascular system. Every system in your body is compromised when your stress hormones are elevated. So this is from a biological standpoint. If you're dealing with chronic stress, your weight loss journey is certainly going to be hindered and compromised here. And so in this case, it's going to be really, really important for you to create an exit strategy. So I understand typically with chronic stress that it's not as simple as just waking up tomorrow and having a new mindset, right? That takes work, right? To eliminate that fear, right? Or to take that risk on whatever you've been stalling on. And so you have to do the work. And typically that's really about sitting down and developing an exit strategy. Number one, who do I need to get on my team to make sure that, I can eliminate this stress? So understand that chronic stress can be really, really detrimental to your health. So final things I want to say and share about, my own personal weight loss journey. And that's one, the key things that I've done is number one, I've established non-negotiables. I have some really firm things in my life that I absolutely do or I absolutely don't do for my health on a daily basis. So establish some really firm non-negotiables and take this one non-negotiable at a time. Second, I changed my environment. That's physical, digital, and social environment. So I made sure that I was in an environment that was conducive to health. So in my home, my physical environment, I didn't give myself access to junk food or chips or whatever your pain point is. If it's chocolate, get it out the house, right? And then, also, I went to classes. I went to physical fitness class. I got into environments where health was a core value and I didn't have a choice but to perform and work on my health, right? Digitally and socially online, I made sure that I'm following individuals that keep me motivated or just giving me the science behind weight loss and those tips. I make sure that my social circle is focused on, health and is a core value for them as well. So I see their posts or I'm on their email list and I'm constantly getting fed that content that I need to keep me in line. I focused on more than just diet and exercise. All the magic doesn't happen in the kitchen or in the gym, right? Your sleep quality plays a role and your weight loss. Your relationships plays a role. Even what you do for a living plays a role, because if you're dissatisfied in what you do for 40 plus hours out of your day, it really impacts your mental and emotional health. And so I didn't just focus on diet and exercise. Next, I stopped letting circumstances dictate my behavior. I really focused on making sure that, I wasn't led by what was going on around me, but I took control of my own life and got into the driver's seat. And finally, I overcame addictions and food dependencies. And that is huge on a vegan diet because it is so easy to eliminate animal products and still have a huge dependency on salt, oil, and sugar, which could really, again, hinder your weight loss journey. So those are the things that I've been able to do to maintain my weight loss. I hope that was extremely helpful for you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this wonderful event.